Well, we've made it to the last weekend of May. Some folks are looking forward to a day free tomorrow for Memorial Day weekend, an interesting holiday that started out being called Decoration Day, as in different places around the country people chose a day in May to decorate the graves of our Civil War soldiers who had died, and gradually it was brought together into a national holiday and moved to the last weekend of May. And then somehow it became the unofficial start of summer and pool season. It all kind of has fallen together, but we do remember those who have given their lives so that we can be free to share our faith as we understand it. And so we are truly grateful. But now we're also this week down to the last of the graduation ceremonies, from the lowest to the highest. My grandson graduated from pre-kindergarten in full cap and gown. He was pretty excited about that and moving up to kindergarten. Other folks have graduated from high school or college, some with graduate degrees, all probably wondering what comes next. Because, as a pre-kindergarten graduate, you're pretty sure what comes next. It's kindergarten. But when you graduate from college or grad school, it may feel like stepping off a cliff, not knowing where you're going to land. And even folks who aren't graduating from school might be thinking about graduating from one job and looking for another. One phase of life or one career may feel like it has run its course, and you find yourself wondering what's next. Now, graduates from maybe preschool all the way through college have grasped the importance of setting goals and making plans. But when you step out of that structured school world, we can all acknowledge that it might be hard to figure out what comes next. How do we know we're making the right choices? What if we make the wrong choice or choose the wrong job or the wrong city or the wrong friends? And then what are the possibilities? It can feel overwhelming. What we're talking about really is discernment. Sometimes maybe it seems only preachers and professors use that word, but it's a good word because it's something we do every day. We are constantly making choices: where to eat, what to wear, where to drive, which friends to hang out with or not. And we can drive ourselves crazy if we're trying to be perfect. And we can suffer dire consequences if we're afraid to try. But discernment is what we do. And it really means sifting through our experiences to determine their origin, direction, their meaning, to try to choose well. Now, in their book, Listening Hearts, A Discerning Call in Community, the author suggests that the ability to discern is a process of growth involving one's desires and feelings and reactions and choices. We find as we grow up and we move forward in spiritual maturity, we move beyond the need for those very specific rules and answers. And yet we move into that darkness of God where we must act in faith rather than in certainty. Now, our story from the book of Acts is a story of discernment. It's encouraging, I think, to know that it's not just me and it's not just you. This has been difficult to figure out for a very long time. Am I listening to the Spirit? Is this where God is leading me? Am I using my gifts? Am I feeling my potential? Am I finding my purpose? And here we get a glimpse of Paul's decision-making process, and I'm pretty sure Paul did not sit down one day with pen and paper and make out a 5-year plan. I think I'm going to convert from Judaism to being a follower of Jesus. Check. Then I'm going to expand this new faith outside the realm of Judaism, make it an intercultural faith. Check. I think I'm going to tackle inviting women into the inner circle of leadership. Check. Then I think I'll get arrested and be put in prison for the rest of my days. Check. No, I'm pretty sure it was more like the Spirit of God kept pushing him a little bit farther outside of his comfort zone. But in order to do that, he had to be listening. He had to be having an open mind, enough to entertain new possibilities for his future and for the future of the people and the communities that he would influence. So our scripture that we read this morning, we start with one way of making decisions. During the night, Paul had a vision. That seems to happen a lot in Scripture. Maybe not so much for us in ways that we feel quite so certain about. And this particular vision actually comes in the middle of a long process of trying to find the right path. He's already been on the road for some time with a group of friends. They've been to Cyprus, they've been to Syria, they've met with people in towns in between the big cities. They've talked with people from many backgrounds. They've already come back to Jerusalem to work out some differences with the original Jewish Christian church, where there they thought you had to become Jewish first before you could follow Jesus. And it took some long hours of conversation and debate and sharing their thoughts. What is it going to mean to be a follower of Jesus? What will it mean to the future to be a Christian? And together, trying to discern God's intention, they finally come to this understanding to let go of the strict requirements of Judaism so that Gentiles and Asians and Africans and Westerners could all come to their relationship with God through Christ in their own way as the Spirit led them. And so now they're getting ready to start on another road trip, and Timothy and Silas and our narrator are on board with Paul to go somewhere new. They just don't know where to go next. They're packed, they're ready to go. There's just no itinerary. And so we often say they were listening for the Spirit to lead, but that seems to limit us a little bit to one sense. Do we hear the Spirit speaking, or do we feel it in our gut? Or maybe do we see a vision where God is taking us? And all of these seem to be true for the early followers. We're told this time they were forbidden by the Spirit to speak in Asia. And the Spirit wouldn't let them go to Bithynia. And we don't know if anyone heard a voice or they just knew that. But finally they get this clear message. During the night, Paul has a vision. And it was a dream. Maybe it was a strong mental picture in his mind as he was praying. But finally he knew there was someone in Macedonia that needed what they had to offer. Now Paul has this vision, and then the next verse something changes. It goes from he to we. The vision must be interpreted, and that task doesn't belong to one person. The community is involved in discerning that this is a call from God, and not just for one person, but for them together to move in this direction. At every point in time, we are called to discern our purpose and our direction. Where is the Spirit calling us? Sometimes the Spirit is calling us to people or places that we might think are outside of our circle of responsibility. Brian Peterson points out, Paul had this vision and it involved a Macedonian man. But the first to welcome them in Philippi was a woman. And the funny thing is that she was a woman who was from the area that Paul had just left in the east. It seems kind of odd that this woman from Thyatira in Asia, where their Spirit had said, don't go, is here in Philippi. And here's the good news. Maybe it seems, or we should pay attention to the possibility that simple expectations about how God works are going to be proven wrong. And Lydia was what they called a God-fearer. She was already listening to the Spirit of God even before she had heard about Christ. She wasn't born Jewish, but she was interested and intrigued by the Jewish understanding of God, but still on the outside looking in. She was outside the city gates by the river, kind of where life takes place where the water is drawn to dye the cloth that she sold in the market. This is the place where women come to wash their clothes. the place where people come to pray in the midst of their busy days. And this is where the Spirit led Paul and his friends to stop for some water and some conversation. And in that conversation, Lydia and Paul find out that they have this common interest in her hometown and a common interest in seeking God. And Paul shares his story of how God had changed his life and led him there. And Lydia is listening and ready for the Spirit to take her life in new directions. So she's baptized as a symbol of this new path that her life is taking, and she brings her household along. She has family and employees and friends, and she opens her house to people of different ethnic backgrounds and economic status. And here, social and cultural barriers crumble. And this one corner of the world is beginning to be changed by God's grace. Now, we might call this story a story of serendipity, of coincidence, of providence, because this encounter could not have been planned. There was no way to know who would be hanging out by the river that day. But while waiting with an open heart and an open mind, Paul had a hunch, had a sense of peace, followed his intuition, made an educated guess maybe that this might be a good place to start, and then amazing things fell into place. In Listen Hearts, Gillen Ward suggests that discernment can be like driving a car at night where your headlights cast just enough light to see the next small bit of road in front of us, but we're not absolutely sure what's coming after that. Discernment involves the use of reason, but this process maybe can be stifled by excess analysis. Pascal noted, the heart has reasons that reason does not know. So maybe now, there could be some signs that God may be calling you to some place, to something new. Maybe when you feel a certain restlessness, maybe a dissatisfaction with the way things are, a sense of longing and wondering and feeling of maybe I'm at a crossroads. A sense of being in a time of transition and wrestling with an issue or decision. Something new, some new and unexpected opportunities might be coming out of situations that feel like nothing but obstacles are keeping us from our goals. And in these times, we need to lean on the experiences that we've been given. We need to seek the wisdom of those that have gone before us. Paul reminds his friend Timothy to do just that when he's feeling unsure of his future. He gave him these encouraging words. I'm reminded of your sincere faith, the faith that lived first in your grandmother and your mother, and now I am sure lives in you. So for this reason, I remind you to rekindle the gift of God that is within you. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. Fred Rogers once said, you rarely have time for everything you want in this life, so you need to make choices, and hopefully your choices can come from a deep sense of who you are. Our sense of who we are comes from that accumulation of our experiences, the innate talents that we have discovered in ourselves, the skills we have chosen to develop, the people who have influenced us for good or for ill, from the community we choose to keep, and from the image and the character of the God we choose to trust. So whether you're graduating from school or from one job or another, from stage of life to the next stage of life, don't let FOMO, fear of missing out, don't let fear of missing out leave you panicked or emotionally paralyzed. Instead, listen and watch and wait for the Spirit to nudge you forward. And be sure to lean on your community in that uncomfortable in-between time, and trust your gut and step out in faith. For God is still creating serendipitous encounters and opening up new possibilities every day.